So let's talk a little bit about comparison. Comparison of numerals and quantities is a real essential skill in mathematics. It's important in the early grade levels, and it's important for later mathematics. And comparison is particularly helpful for students as they establish an idea of a mental number line, which numbers are greater and which numbers are less. Now, as we think about developing an understanding of comparison, it's really important that we engage students in lots of different practice opportunities. Here we might think about practice opportunities with those quantities, often with manipulatives or with drawings. We also want to think about comparison with just the numbers. Here they're presented in their numeral form. Now, when we want students to think about comparison, we want them to start to think really flexibly about numbers and understand different representations and how to compare those representations. We also are going to use a lot of language around comparison. So not only do students need to know what more means, but they also may need to know what most means or what greater or greatest means. What about with less? We also need to know what least means or fewer or fewest. And then we also need to know what equal means. So what are some activities that we could do to help students understand comparison? Well, first, if we're thinking about equal, maybe I present students with two number cards here, and then I ask, well, which of these matches the group of blocks, or which of these is equal? And here I could count these 3 blocks, 1, 2, 3, and see that that matches this card right here. I could also do activities where students are practicing with both numerals and their quantities, and then doing some comparison. Here, answering the question, which is less? As we move on with our comparison, we want students to be able to talk a lot about the comparisons. So here I've got a set of green blocks and a set of yellow blocks, and maybe students have a strategy to figure out, well, which of these sets is greater? And then I would ask, well, how do you know that there are more green blocks than yellow blocks? And so students could talk about, well, I have 4 green blocks and I lined those up here, and I have 3 yellow blocks and I lined those up here, and I can see that there's 1 more green block than yellow block, so I know that the green blocks represent a larger or greater set than the yellow blocks. Look at how much language was required to talk about that comparison. Now, we just looked at some pictorial representations of comparison. What I'd like to do is get out a few manipulatives and think about how could we help students understand comparison using those manipulatives. All right, I've got my manipulative set up here. We're going to do several different comparisons. First, I'm going to compare these shapes. I see that I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 red trapezoids, and then I see here I have 1, 2, 3 green triangles. So I'm going to ask myself, well, which set has more? Well, I can see that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is more than 1, 2, 3. So here, if I wanted to put in my greater than sign, I could go ahead and do that there to show that 5 is greater than 3. And maybe I would also like to write it with the numeral, just to show the comparison like that. Now I've got these different motors, and I see that I have some motors that are for the sea, so I've got 2 boats, and then I've got some motors that drive on land. So let's see how many I have of those. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All right. So then I would ask myself, well, which set is greater, the boats or the things that drive on land? Well, here I see I have a set of 1, 2, and over here I have a set of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 7 is greater than 2, or I could say that as 2 is less than 7. So I'll go ahead and put in my less than symbol. And if I wanted to right here, I could write the inequality 2 is less than 7. So I've been able to compare those motors. Now I'm going to look at my counters here. I have some red counters and I have some yellow counters. So I'll go ahead and bring those onto my workspace. And let's see, in this set of red counters, I have 1, 2, 3, 4. And in my set of yellow counters, I have 1, 2, 3, 4. So I could think, well, which is more or which is less? Ah, neither. They are equal. 4 is equal to 4. So those are just some ideas of how we could use manipulatives to do a comparison activity. Here I compared to figure out that 5 is greater than 3. Here I compared to understand that 2 is less than 7. And then here I compared to show that 4 is equal to 4. So we just used manipulatives to compare, and one of the things I started to do was use the comparison signs to understand the relationship between two sets. I did use the equal sign there. The equal sign is a really helpful symbol for showing that one set is equal to another set, or you might say one set is the same as another set. But then that equal sign there is directly related to our inequality symbols. So if I'm showing that something is less than, I take these the equal sign and I'm going to squeeze this side of it, and that helps me create the less than symbol. Do you still see the two lines of the equal sign right there? And then if I'm going to say that something's greater than, I take that equal sign and I squeeze this side to show something is greater than something else. So the equal sign and the greater than and less than symbols are directly related. And if we teach students to think about the symbols in this way, we can eliminate all that nonsense about greater gators who are super hungry and really trying to chomp that bigger or greater number. Now that brings us to activity 4, where you are going to do this activity and think about what are some of the ways that you could design activities to help students understand comparison. And then I'd also like you to think about what are some of the activities you'd engage students in to help them understand the symbols related to comparison, the greater than symbol, the less than symbol, and the equal sign.